We've been allowed into the secret garden of Meckleburgh Square, a hidden gem of Georgian architecture on the eastern edge of Bloomsbury. The garden's usually locked to non-residents and it's hidden behind high hedges, but this is the place that D.H. Lawrence once described as the dark, bristling heart of London. Square haunting began 5 years ago when I realised that two of my favourite writers, the Imagist poet H.D. and the novelist Virginia Woolf, had lived in the same square in London during different world wars. I'd always associated Bloomsbury with the famous Bloomsbury group, but I was fascinated to learn how many other women writers had lived here, working across classics, translation, crime, poetry and history. I began to wonder who they were and what had brought them to Meckleburgh Square, what they were looking for when they moved here and how this place had shaped their lives. I wanted to tell their stories, and in the process to tell a wider story about women's lives over this formative period, about women's work and education, their friendships, their involvement in politics and activism, and the way in which they negotiated the conflict between intellectual and emotional fulfilment. Each chapter of the book looks at one of the women during the time she happened to live in Meckleburgh Square, some at the beginnings or the ends of their lives, some at the height of their careers and others before they were famous at all. Dorothy L moved here just after graduation when she was working on her first detective novel and embarking on her first serious relationship, which made her question the sort of future that she wanted. Jane Harrison, the pioneering classicist whose theories about the matriarchal origins of Greek religion caused huge controversy in Cambridge, came to the square in her 70s to work on translation projects and throw her energies into supporting a community of Russian émigrés in exile after the revolution. Virginia Woolf moved into the square as the Second World War was declared and fought the threat of an uncertain future by embarking on several ambitious works of fiction and biography, including her final novel Between the Acts and her own unfinished childhood memoir. Eileen Power, an economic historian, spent 20 years here teaching international history at the London School of Economics, broadcasting pacifist messages to children on the BBC and chairing meetings of young socialists in her kitchen. The poet H.D. lived here during the First World War, which was also an extremely turbulent period in her personal life, which she spent decades trying to untangle in a complex cycle of novels and also discussed at length in her analysis with Freud. So the book is the story of these 5 women in this one small London square, but I hope its reach extends far beyond Bloomsbury. It's the story of a definitive period in 20th century world history, of changes for women in and outside the home, about equality in all its forms, and the ongoing question of how to live a fulfilled and invigorating life.